In 1713, after 12 relentless years of war, the British Royal Navy cast more than 36,000 sailors adrift onto the streets, stripped of work and any hope for the future. These weren't ordinary men. They were the world's most seasoned seafarers, veterans who had spent years with legal permission to seize enemy vessels as privateers. They knew every trick to capture a ship by force. Now, with empty bellies and no pay, desperation set in. It's little wonder they turned to attacking anyone they could find. But before we dive in, if you're enjoying these late-night historical tales, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and tell me, where are you listening from? And what time is it for you? I've got listeners drifting off to these stories everywhere from Tokyo to Toronto, and it never stops feeling surreal to me. Now get yourself comfortable. Really? Fix your pillows. Pull the blanket close. We're about to set sail for the Caribbean in 1715, and you'll want to be settled in for this. Your eyes blink open to the suffocating, sticky heat of Nassau, in the Bahamas. The first thing you feel is the rough, salt-encrusted hammock biting into your back, rocking slightly with the tide against the stilts beneath a weather-worn shack. Then the smell arrives. An overwhelming cocktail of unwashed bodies, strong rum, the ocean's salt, and something foul and rotting nearby. This is no clean, temperature-controlled room. This place overwhelms every sense you have, and you're not alone. All around, a dozen men snore and mutter, crammed into a space fit for half that number. Through cracks in the warped planks, faint pink dawn slips across the harbor. Another day in the so-called Republic of Pirates is about to begin. "Up, you worthless dogs!" a voice cuts through the heavy air. "Tide's rising, and so are the Spanish. Up!" The words come from Benjamin Hornigold, one of the first to claim these ruins as a pirate sanctuary. Your head throbs with the remnants of last night's rum as you try to make sense of him. 2 Spanish merchantmen, heavy cargo, light cruise, Hornigold growls, kicking hammocks awake. They'll skirt the eastern shore by noon. The men around you stir instantly. In the Navy, it would take whips and threats to rouse them this fast. Here, the lure of Spanish plunder does the work. You stagger outside with the others, joining the stream toward the beach. Nassau isn't much. A scattering of burnt-out buildings being slowly reclaimed by vines and tropical growth. Years earlier, the British abandoned it after a Franco-Spanish raid, and nature has been taking over since. But for men like you, men cast out by so-called civilized society, this ruin has become something else entirely. A haven free of kings and crowns. The man walking beside you spits a streak of dark saliva into the sand. "Heard Teach is sailing with Hornigold today," he mutters. Edward Teach, you've heard the rumors. Broad-shouldered, towering, a former privateer with a voice that cuts louder than cannon fire. Not yet the dreaded Blackbeard, but already earning a reputation for ferocity and sharp cunning. Teach knows the Spanish routes better than his own bed. Someone jokes, drawing laughter, and as if his name summoned him, you see Teach striding toward the shoreline where 3 large boats wait. Each can hold 30 men, and crews are loading them with water barrels, hardtack, and powder. "Move sharp!" Teach bellows, his wild, dark beard already lending him the name he'd soon be feared by. "I want us on the water before the sun clears those palms." The coordination surprises you. These men had sworn off kings and officers, yet they move with crisp precision. There's a reason for that. Despite the myths, pirate crews were among the most democratic forces of their age. Every man had signed the articles, a set of ships, laws, and every man had a vote when it counted. You joining us? A heavy hand claps your shoulder. Hornigold himself looks at you, waiting for your answer. Before you can respond, a shout rises from the boats. Ship from the east, white, Flag flying. Everything halts. A white flag could mean surrender, truce, or a messenger bringing word. Might be Rogers. Someone mutters, and a nervous ripple passes through the men. Woods Rogers. The name alone stiffens pirate spines. Once a privateer, now the Crown's. A pointed hammer sent to crush the Republic of Pirates. Across the Caribbean, one man's name had begun to spread like wildfire. Woods Rogers. He'd been offering pardons to any pirate willing to give up the trade, and a hangman's rope for those who refused. Nah, too small, another voice scoffs. Looks like a sloop. Maybe it's Vane coming back. Charles Vane. Another pirate. Captain, gone for weeks in search of plunder. His return could spell triumph or disaster. The small vessel tacks toward the harbor, and as it nears, shapes on deck grow clearer. At the helm, yes, it's Vane. His trademark red coat unmistakable, but it's the figure beside him that stirs the crowd. Bellamy? Someone blurts in disbelief. Black Sam himself, another replies. Samuel Bellamy, better known as Black Sam, with his long dark hair tied back in black ribbons. One of the most successful pirates of his age, famed for seizing ships with little bloodshed through sheer intimidation and careful strategy. If Bellamy had come here, something momentous was underway. Hornigold frowns, his earlier plans forgotten. Teach, hold the raid. Let's hear them first. The sloop drops anchor, and a smaller boat rows ashore. The tension rises, every man sensing history in the making. Hornigold, Teach, Vane, Bellamy, together they'd become the founders of what the world would call the Flying Gang, the beating heart of Nassau's pirate republic. And today, something was drawing them together. The rowboat crunches into sand. Vane leaps out, followed by Bellamy and a third man. Stranger, refined. His coat finer, his bearing aristocratic, though pistols glint at his belt. Ben, Vane calls out. You won't believe this. This here's Stade Bonny. The newcomer gives a stiff nod, visibly uneasy. You've heard the name? The Gentleman Pirate. Once a wealthy plantation owner, he'd abandoned fortune and family to chase piracy. Some said he fled a nagging wife. Others claimed madness. Whatever the truth, his seamanship was infamous, barely keeping crews alive. Bonnet brings news, Bellamy cuts in, his tone dark and urgent. The Spanish treasure fleet wrecked off Florida last month. Hurricane drove all 11 galleons onto the reefs. Silence falls heavy. The treasure fleet, ships overflowing with silver, gold, and jewels mined in the New World, sent annually to Spain. And now, wrecked. The Spaniards are salvaging what they can, Vane adds, eyes gleaming. Already hauled up millions in silver, but more waits. Bonnet says 350,000 pieces of 8 sit in a guardhouse on shore. Just 60 men watching it. The meaning strikes. Like a cannon shot. A fortune, lightly guarded, waiting to be taken. 5 ships, 300 men, Bellamy says, scanning the faces. We hit fast, hit hard, we leave rich. Hornigold's eyes narrow, already weighing the danger. The Spanish won't sit idle. They'll come for us with everything. Let them try, Teach growls, fire in his gaze. By the time they muster, we'll be shadows on the sea. The air shifts. This isn't another raid. This is destiny. We put it to a vote, Hornigold declares, honoring the pirate code. All in favor of setting aside today's raid and joining forces for the Spanish treasure? A forest of hands shoots skyward. Yours among them, carried by the moment. Settled then, Hornigold nods. We sail with the evening tide. Teach, you'll command the Revenge with Bonnet. Vane, You and Bellamy take the second and third. I'll lead the last two. The beach erupts into motion. Supplies divided, weapons readied, crews assigned, pirates shouting, running, preparing not for a raid but for war. You. A voice cuts sharp. Teach is pointing at you. Royal Navy, right? I can tell by your stance. Ever fired a swivel gun? Before you can reply, he waves the question off. Doesn't matter. You'll fire one today. Report to the Revenge. Tell Scudder I sent you. And just like that, you're claimed by one of the boldest pirate schemes in history. As you walk toward the docks, where the larger ships wait, the weight of it all sinks in. Yesterday, you were nothing more than another stranded sailor. Yesterday, you were drowning your worries in rum. Today, you're about to sail under Blackbeard himself in a hunt for Spanish treasure. The Revenge is a sharp, fast brigantine taken from a Spanish merchant not long ago. As you clamber aboard, the sight is overwhelming. Men rushing about, loading guns, securing food, sharpening blades. Yet there's no lash cracking, no officers screaming. These men work because they want to, each one invested in the outcome. Scudder, you ask a sailor, who nods toward a broad-shouldered man inspecting a row of muskets. Teach sent me, you explain as you reach him. Something about a swivel gun. Scudder's eyes narrow, studying you. Navy man, huh? Good. The swivels. Need steady hands. He gestures toward the rail where smaller cannons are mounted. Not as big as ship's guns, but lethal up close. We use them to sweep the decks clean before we board. He guides you to the weapons. Stubby barrels, just 3 feet long, perched on swiveling mounts. These beauties fire grape shot, he says, patting one with pride. A spray of iron balls like a giant shotgun. Fire once, and you can drop 20 men. Aim for their officers first. Cut the head off, and the body follows. His matter-of-fact tone unsettles you. Killing spoken of as casually as repairing a sail. But this is pirate life. Brutal, pragmatic. For all their democratic ideals and the freedoms they promised, they were still outlaws, thieves, killers. The stories of dashing heroes would come. Centuries later, long after the blood dried, by nightfall the fleet is ready. 5 ships, 300 men, all bound for Florida's shores, and the riches waiting there. As the Revenge glides out of Nassau Harbor, you linger at the rail, watching the ruins of huts and charred buildings fade into the night. First big raid, a voice pipes up. You turn to find a boy, no older than 20, grinning at you with several teeth missing. You nod, and he extends a hand. Israel Hands, he says proudly. Been with Teach 6 months now. Best captain I've ever known. Curious, you ask. What makes him different? Hands scratches his chin, thoughtful. He understands fear, not just feeling it, but using it. Most captains win battles with guns and blades. Teach wins them before the first shot's fired. As if on cue, Teach emerges from below deck. Conversation dies instantly. His presence fills the ship like smoke. In the short time you've known him, you've seen the transformation. His beard growing wilder, darker, untamed, a weapon in its own right. Tomorrow we face the Spanish, he begins. Teach's voice booms across the deck, commanding silence. They outnumber us, but they fear us, and they are right to fear. He paces slowly, his eyes burning into each man. When we sight the guardhouse, we'll see their fear. When our boots touch their shore, we'll smell their fear. And when we count their silver, we'll taste their fear. A roar rises from the crew, men howling and cheering, swept into his spell. You find your own voice joining theirs, carried by the strange pull of the man. There's something about Teach. something magnetic, something that makes men willing to risk their lives for him. The night drags on as the fleet presses southward. Sleep comes hard. In the swaying dark of your hammock, excitement and dread twist inside you. Around you, men whisper and laugh, trading stories of raids past or dreaming aloud of their futures. "First thing I'll do," one boasts, "buy me a tavern in Port Royal, serve rum till I'm fat and retired." "Bah," another scoffs. "You'll drink your share dry before we hit Jamaica." Then someone turns to you. "And you? What'll you do with your cut?" You hesitate. Like so many drawn to piracy, you've lived only for survival. The thought of fortune had never felt real. The question lingers in your head unanswered as exhaustion finally claims you. Dawn comes with a cry from the lookout. "Land ho! Florida coast ahead!" You rush topside, squinting into the morning haze. A long, flat stretch of shore emerges from the mist. Darker shapes break the surf, wrecks. Even at this distance, the devastation is plain. The shattered hulks of Spanish. Galleons lie strewn across reefs and sand, the proud fleet reduced to splinters. At the bow, Teach lifts his spyglass. "There," he growls, pointing. "The guardhouse," just as Bonnet swore. Following his gaze, you spot it. A wooden fortification. On the beach, tents clustered around it, figures moving in the sand. "They've seen us!" Hornigold shouts from his ship as it pulls alongside. "Spanish flags going up!" Sure enough, a banner unfurls above the guardhouse, the red and gold of Spain snapping defiantly against the morning breeze. "Run up the black!" Teach bellows, and with a snap of canvas, the Revenge's flag unfurls, a black field bearing a skeletal figure plunging a spear into a heart, an early emblem of terror, one that would, in time, be feared the world over as Blackbeard's mark. The other pirate ships follow suit, hoisting their own variations of the black flag. The sight is staggering. 5 vessels of outlaws bearing "Down on the Spanish," their banners whipping like dark wings in the wind. "Hands, bring us closer," Teach commands. "Gunners, ready to cover, boarding crews, stand by." The Revenge inches toward the shore, careful of the same reefs that tore apart the treasure fleet. You raise your glass again. On the beach, the Spanish scramble in chaos, men racing to man small cannons, others forming into hurried lines. On the beach, the Spanish scramble into defensive lines. "Hold steady," Teach warns as the first cannon booms. The shot splashes, harmlessly short of the Revenge. "They're nervous," he growls, "making mistakes." The pirate's answer is calm, deliberate. When the ships close in, Teach gives the signal. A broadside thunders out, smashing into the sand and walls of the guardhouse, not to obliterate, but to terrify, to scatter. The silver was too precious to risk. Confusion was the true target. "Boarding crews to the boats!" Teach bellows over the roar. "Swivel gunners, cover them!" You brace at your gun, firing into the chaos as longboats splash down. Dozens of men pile in, blades flashing, pistols ready. In the lead boat, Teach himself leaps aboard, sword raised high. The Spaniards fire wildly now, musket balls whistling, cannon blasts crashing. But the pirates surge forward. Midway to shore, Teach rises to his full height, fearless, dramatic. From his coat he pulls a bottle. With his teeth he yanks the cork free, then jams a burning fuse into the neck. "What in God's name, someone mutters beside you. The answer comes as Teach hurls it. The bottle arcs in smoke and flame, striking the guardhouse with a crash. Fire erupts instantly, a crude grenade, but devastating. In the chaos, the longboats reach shore. Pirates leap into the surf, charging with a fury that drowns Spanish resistance. From your position, you watch it unfold, Teach in the thick of battle, his wild beard flying like a banner. An hour later, it is done. The A. Red and gold flag falls. In its place, the black rises over the guardhouse. Victory. The cost is small by pirate standards. 3 dead, a dozen wounded. Nearly 20 Spaniards lie slain, the rest bound. And when the longboats return, groaning under the weight of iron-chained chests, the truth of it shines. 350,000 pieces of 8, just as Bonnet had claimed, a fortune beyond imagining. "We did it!" Israel Hands cries beside you, his boyish face alight. "By God, we actually did it!" That night, the fleet anchors offshore, unwilling to linger long under threat of reinforcements. The treasure is divided by the articles, captains and officers taking larger shares, but every man richer than he could ever hope to be and honest. Labor. Rum flows, songs rise, laughter shakes the decks, yet you sit apart, staring at the weight of silver stowed in your bag. It feels unreal. With wealth comes the question, what next? Teach drops beside you, quiet amid the din. Heavy thoughts. On a night like this, he asks. Just wondering what comes after, you admit. He gazes at the dark water, moonlight threading through his beard. We return to Nassau. Fortify. The world is shifting, friend. The war is done and the crowns are turning back to the colonies. Back to us. You think they'll come for Nassau? Teach nods, certain. Men like Woodes Rogers won't suffer a pirate republic long. But we'll be ready. Then his grin spreads wide, raising a bottle of rum. And then we'll live as free men. As he rejoins the revelry, you remain, staring at the silver, at the sea, at the uncertain horizon of a pirate's life. With new clarity, you sense this raid was never just about Spanish silver. It marks the birth of something greater, the rise of Nassau's pirate republic. An audacious experiment in outlaw democracy that will soon draw the eyes and the wrath of the British Empire. None of you can know that this very victory will ignite both the golden age of piracy and its inevitable fall. But for now, there is only the night, the rum, the laughter, and the intoxicating freedom of belonging to no king or country, only to one another and the articles you've sworn. The pirate republic has announced itself to the world, and soon the world will answer. Morning light slants through the cracked boards of a Nassau tavern. Your skull pounds in rhythm with the beams. Punishment for last night's celebration. At your waist, a pouch jingles heavy with silver. Your share from the Spanish raid. It is 1716, and Nassau's pirate republic is thriving. "Wake up, you bastard!" growls a familiar voice. "Teach wants to see you." Peeling your cheek off the sticky table, you squint at Israel Hands. No longer the boy you first met, but hardened, scarred, a man marked by bloodshed. "Now," you rasp. "Right now," he confirms. "He's at the docks. Your mouth tastes like death itself. It might as well be. The water in Nassau is so foul most pirates stick to rum or beer, safer than gambling with the dysentery that fells more sailors than cannon fire. Outside, Nassau has transformed. What was once a scattering of huts among ruins has grown into a booming den of pirates. Taverns, brothels, and supply shops crowd the streets, feeding off the hundreds who now call this outlaw haven home. The raid brought not just riches, but reputation. and with reputation, recruits. You find Teach at the far end of a newly built pier, overseeing the loading of a sloop. Yet something about him is changed. The beard that once marked him as unkempt has been cultivated into something fearsome, a black mane spreading across his chest. There he is. Teach grins through the wild tangle. My favorite gunner. You wanted to see me? You ask. Got a proposition. His voice drops. Hornigold and I are parting ways. The words stagger you. Edward Teach and Benjamin Hornigold had been inseparable since Nassau's founding, their partnership its foundation. What happened? Teach gestures you aboard the sloop before answering. Philosophical differences. Ben refuses to touch English ships. Says it breaks his old privateer commission. But the war's done, you protest. That commission's worthless. Exactly. Teach's eyes glitter. I say a ship's a ship. Gold is gold. Flag doesn't matter. Half the crew agrees. You realize what this means. You're splitting the men. Already did. Vote was last night while you were face down in your cups. I'm taking this sloop and 40 hands. We're going hunting. His dark gaze fixes on you. You're good with a swivel gun. Steady in a fight. Don't waste words. I want you with me. It isn't a request. In Nassau's unwritten code, refusing could be taken as insult. And besides, your silver is disappearing fast in taverns and brothels. When do we sail? You ask. High tide, Teach says, grin widening. 2 hours. You spend them gathering what little you own and saying farewell to the few friends you've made in Nassau. Among them is Matthews, a former Royal Navy gunner. Matthews gives you a worried look. Teach is changing, he warns. He's not the same man who sailed with Hornigold. How so? You ask. Matthews lowers his voice. He's building a reputation and feeding it. I saw him yesterday with slow matches in his beard, standing before a mirror testing the look. You picture again the wild-haired figure on the dock. It's just for show, you suggest. Maybe, Matthews says, unconvinced. But there's talk. Ships taken where no one lived to tell the tale. Before you can press him further, a bell clangs from the harbor. The call for Teaches. Crew to board. Hoisting your sea bag, you give Matthews a final nod. If I don't come back, you tell him, drink a toast to me. To all of us, Matthews answers grimly. The sloop, renamed Adventure, slides out of Nassau Harbor with the tide. Smaller than the Revenge, but quicker, sharper, she's built for stalking merchants in the shallows of the Bahamas. Once Nassau fades into the horizon, Teach gathers the crew on deck. Even under the blazing Caribbean sun, a shadow clings to him. Dressed head to toe in black, pistols strapped across his chest, cutlass at his hip, he commands the space with a presence heavier than steel. We sail as equals, he declares. Bound by the articles we've signed. Every man gets a vote. Every man gets a share. But at sea, my word is law. No one dares question the contradiction. In the pirate code, a captain's word in battle was final. Survival depended on it. The votes mattered only in strategy, punishment, and division of spoils. Our grounds will be the shipping lanes between here and Carolina, Teach continues. Rich prey, but dangerous waters. The Royal Navy patrols there, and the governors want our heads for gold. A nervous murmur ripples across the deck. Riskier than raiding Spanish wrecks in safe Caribbean waters, but richer too. Higher risk, higher reward, Teach thunders. I'll make us rich men, or dead ones. His grin twists, joyless, and something cold stirs in your gut. This is not the Edward Teach who brought you into Nassau. This is someone darker. 2 weeks pass with no prizes, only dwindling stores and rising discontent. The crew mutters against Teach, questioning why he dragged them from safe hunting grounds. Then, at dawn on the 16th day, the lookout calls sails. Through his spyglass, Teach confirms. Merchantman, Dutch flag, northbound. The deck explodes into motion. Gunners run checks, boarders hone blades and load pistols. Teach vanishes into his cabin, only to emerge minutes later transformed. For the first time, you witness the image that will haunt history. Matches smolder in his beard, tucked beneath his hat. Sulphurous smoke coils about his face, giving him the look of a demon risen from fire. Within the haze, his eyes burn. What in God's name? Someone whispers beside you. Terror, Teach replies, hearing across the deck. Terror is a weapon sharper than any cannon. He strides to the bow as the Adventure closes the gap, the Dutch vessel now desperately trying to flee. Futile. Run up the black, Teach orders. The pirate. Flag rises, not Hornigold's but a new terror, a skeleton thrusting a spear through a heart while clutching an hourglass. Its message is stark. Your time is nearly gone. As the Adventure closes on the merchant ship, Teach makes his move. He bites down on 2 lit matches, their fire jutting from his mouth like glowing fangs. Combined with the smoke writhing through, his beard, he is no man but a devil conjured from the sea. Fire a warning shot, he growls through clenched teeth. The bow gun booms, the ball splashing across the Dutchman's path. At once, her sails drop in surrender. No fight? Someone mutters, disappointed. Teach spits out the matches, grinning. That's the point. Terror wins battles without bloodshed. Remember it. The capture is swift. The Dutch crew, broken before the first shot, offers no resistance. Cargo is shifted, valuables taken, and the ship left afloat. A break from Hornigold's practice, who burned prizes to erase witnesses. Why leave her? You ask Hans as the Adventure pulls away. The captain has new methods, Hans answers. Let them live. Let them spread the tale, the legend of Blackbeard. The name, spoken for the first time, takes hold. In the months that follow, Blackbeard seizes 8 more merchantmen. Each time his image grows darker, more matches in his beard, more pistols strapped across his chest, his voice lowered to a growl not quite human. Each time he spares survivors to carry his story. Soon ships are striking colors at the mere glimpse of his flag. By winter, the Adventure returns to Nassau groaning with plunder, sugar, molasses, cocoa, tobacco, coin enough to enrich all. Yet Blackbeard is restless. We need a larger ship, he declares. More guns, more presents. The Adventure serves us well, argues Fletcher, cautious as ever. Fast, nimble, small. The prey is larger now, better armed, Blackbeard counters. We must match them. The debate spills from the docks into Nassau's taverns. The Republic has swelled, new captains carving names for themselves. Charles Vane swaggering in with spoils, Samuel Bellamy with a fresh command, even Stade Bonnet, the gentleman pirate, boasting success. Yet none command attention like Blackbeard, whose smoldering beard has become more habit than theater. You're drinking with Hans when a messenger bursts in. Spanish galleons spotted off the western shore, heavily armed, flying merchant colors. The tavern erupts. Galleons are the greatest prize, massive, rich, untouchable. Too big for us, Fletcher warns, as Blackbeard rallies the crew. The Adventure hasn't the guns. We'll sail with Vane, Blackbeard decides. Together we'll take her. Against expectation, Vane agrees. His ranger and the adventure slip out under a full moon, hunting glory. The plan is simple. Strike at dawn, as the watch grows weary. And at first light, you sight her. A towering three-masted giant, 30 guns at least. That's no merchant, Fletcher mutters. That's a warship under false colors. Before his words settle, Blackbeard gives the order. The adventure and ranger bear down from opposite sides. Suddenly, the Spanish ship erupts, gun ports yawning wide. It's a frigate. Sent to hunt pirates. Hard to port, Blackbeard bellows, as the first broadside smashes the sea where you had been. Return fire! The adventure's small guns thunder, hopelessly light against the frigate's power. But Blackbeard's men fire with precision, hammering at rudder and rigging, aiming not to break her hull, but cripple her. The ranger shudders under a broadside. A single thunderous volley smashes through her hull, splintering timbers and dropping her mainmast in a tangle of rigging. The ship drifts helpless, canvas collapsing into the sea. "We're on our own!" Hans shouts above the roar of cannon, through the smoke. You glimpse Blackbeard. His beard still smolders, his eyes burn with mad certainty. He shows no fear. "Closer," he orders. "Alongside?" Fletcher protests, aghast. "They'll tear us apart." "Their guns can't depress enough. If we hug their hull," Blackbeard replies, calm as the sea before a storm. "Get us in their blind spot. It is lunacy, but the only chance left." The helmsman obeys, guiding the adventure straight into the jaws of death. A second broadside slams into you, tearing rigging to shreds, but by miracle the hull holds. Then suddenly you are there, so close that the frigate's towering side looms over you like a fortress wall. Spanish cannon thunder harmlessly overhead, unable to bear down. Muskets crack from above, but your sharpshooters return fire, cutting down men on the rail. "Grappling hooks!" Blackbeard bellows. Madness. 40 men against more than 100. Yet the captain does not hesitate. He hurls the first hook himself, teeth bared, eyes blazing like a demon risen from hell. "Are we really doing this?" someone mutters. "Would you rather drown here?" Hans snarls, flinging his own hook. The pirates surge forward. Lines bite tight. The ships are locked together. Then comes the boarding, pistols cracking, smoke choking the air, cutlasses ringing. On steel. You fight shoulder to shoulder, the clash so fierce it feels less like battle than survival itself. The Spaniards have numbers, but the pirates have desperation, and they have Blackbeard. He is everywhere at once, wading through musket. Smoke like a phantom, beard aflame, pistols barking, cutlass flashing red. He roars with every stroke, laughs when shot tears through his coat, fights like no mortal man. "He's not human," gasps a Spanish officer, moments before you cut him down. Minutes stretch into eternity. Then the tide turns. Spanish sailors falter. Some throw down weapons. Others leap screaming into the sea rather than face the devil on their decks. At last, the Spanish captain, bloodied and beaten, extends his sword. "The frigate is yours. The cost is steep. 12 dead, nearly all others wounded, but the prize is beyond reckoning. In the hold lies the military payroll for Havana, over 100,000 pieces of 8. A gift from God," Blackbeard declares, standing drenched in blood upon the quarter-deck. Then he grins, the fire still glowing in his beard. Or perhaps from the devil. The frigate is renamed Revenge, in memory of his first command under Hornigold. Alongside the crippled adventure and limping ranger, She sails back into Nassau Harbor. Never before has a Spanish warship fallen to pirates. The town erupts in awe. Blackbeard is no longer merely feared, he is legend. In the weeks that follow, the Revenge is remade to his vision. Gunports cut, cannon added, 40 in all. She is no longer a prize ship, but a floating fortress. We're not just hunters anymore, Blackbeard tells his swelling crew of 100. We're masters. The Caribbean will be ours. Some exchange uneasy glances. Piracy, until now, had been about survival, about gold, not dominion. But Blackbeard's eyes blaze with a hunger greater than plunder. One evening, he summons his officers to his cabin. The space is transformed. Black drapes over the windows, weapons hung like trophies, a massive oak desk looted from some governor's mansion. "Gentlemen," Blackbeard begins, his voice low, steady. "Our success has drawn eyes we'd rather not have. Virginia, South Carolina, the Bahamas, they've all proclaimed against us, and the governors have set their price." He slides a paper across the desk. $500 for Blackbeard. Dead or alive, alive. 500 for me. 100 for each of you. The words land like cannon shot, the largest bounties ever placed on pirates, enough to tempt even the most loyal brother to betrayal. Blackbeard's eyes sweep the room. And there's more. Woodes Rogers has been appointed governor of the Bahamas. His charge, destroy Nassau, root and branch. A ripple of unease stirs the cabin. Rogers was no ordinary crown servant. He had once been a privateer himself, a man who knew every trick of the trade, and now commanded the full weight of the British Navy. So, what's the plan? Fletcher asks, speaking what all are thinking. We abandon Nassau? Find another haven? No, Blackbeard replies, a cold smile curling beneath his smoke-stained beard. We negotiate. With who, you ask, half in disbelief. Governor Charles Eden of North Carolina. His voice is calm, deliberate. I've already sent word. Eden is sympathetic. He will offer us safe harbor, protection from bounty hunters, and legitimate papers. In return, we share a portion of our prizes and keep clear of English shipping. Fletcher narrows his eyes. So we're privateers again, just as Hornigold wanted. Not quite. Blackbeard leans forward, his shadow flickering in the lantern light. The difference is simple. We choose our prey, not the crown, and we keep the lion's share. The debate stretches long into the night. Some call it a trap, a noose dressed as pardon. Others argue it is survival, the only way forward in a sea now closing with enemies. At last, the decision comes to a vote. By narrow margin, Eden's offer is accepted. 2 days later, the Revenge slips out of Nassau's harbor. Not as raiders, but as emissaries. The republic you helped build falls astern, its taverns and palisades shrinking into the horizon haze. You find Blackbeard at the stern, silent, staring back at the fading island. Second thoughts, Captain? You ask. He strokes his infamous beard, the ends charred black from powder and flame. Nassau was doomed from the start, he murmurs. A dream too wild to last. Rogers will bring his hangmen and his warships, and the dream will end. And us? For a moment you glimpse the man beneath the monster, the calculating sailor Edward Teach, who survived by bending with the tide. Nothing lasts in our trade, he says. But Eden's bargain buys us time, and time... His gaze turns back to the sea. Time is the only true coin. The Revenge sails on toward Carolina, toward uncertain safety. You cannot shake the feeling that you are leaving more than Nassau behind. A chapter is closing. The age of wild freedom, of a pirate kingdom without kings, is ending. The golden age of piracy has begun to fade. The pardon is a lie, Blackbeard growls. His voice carries across the deck, low but sharp as a cutlass. The moment piracy is no longer useful, those who take it will be strung up anyway. The king's mercy is nothing but a hangman's rope in disguise. The crew shifts uneasily. Some nod in agreement, others glance at each other, doubt in their eyes. You can almost hear their thoughts. Freedom bought with blood and fear versus safety bought with surrender. Blackbeard raises a hand, silencing the whispers. We are not done. Not yet. The Crown may think Nassau's fall means the end of us, but I say it marks the beginning of something greater. We have the Revenge. We have Governor Eden's protection, and we still have the sea. As long as we hold those, we are kings. His words are bold, but you sense the shift beneath them. He is no longer speaking as the reckless marauder who terrorized the Spanish Main. This is Edward Teach, the tactician, the politician, the man willing to cloak himself in respectability, if it buys him time. Time, always time. That night, as lanterns flicker along the shoreline and the inlet lies quiet, you sit with a few shipmates beneath the stars. The dice are forgotten, the rum left untouched. Whispers spread. Jennings pardoned. Hornigold pardoned, even men like Burgess and Vane bending under the king's decree. If such names could abandon the life, what hope remains for Nassau's dream? When you finally drift to your hammock, you cannot shake the feeling that the deck beneath you is shifting, not from the tide, but from the weight of history. Blackbeard may delay defeat, but compromise has already begun to gnaw at the edges of freedom. In the months to come, his legend will only grow. Blockades, daring raids, a stranglehold over the Carolina coast. Terror will be his weapon, smoke and shadow his armor. Yet every victory will bring him closer to betrayal, closer to the trap that waits at Ocracoke Inlet. And though none of you can see it yet, tonight marks the beginning of the end. The pardon, Blackbeard warns, is nothing but a trap. Convenient for the Crown today, he growls. Tomorrow they'll strip it away and hang you anyway. His words land heavily. He knows his men, outlaws with no trade beyond violence, no place in the rigid order they've rejected. For them, amnesty promises only poverty, suspicion, and a noose delayed, not denied. I offer another path, he continues, voice dropping so low the men lean closer. Not retreat, not surrender. A bold strike, one last campaign that will make us all rich enough to vanish forever. The restless spark returns to the crew, tired of months rotting in safety. Fletcher speaks for them all. What venture? Captain? A wolfish grin spreads across Blackbeard's face. First, we need a new ship. The Revenge is too well known. Every Navy captain on the Atlantic would recognize her silhouette. We need something larger, stronger, unforeseen. He spreads a chart across a barrel, stabbing at a shipping lane stretching from Africa to the Caribbean. The French slavers, big, ocean-built, heavily armed, and one in particular, the La Concorde. 300 tons, 26 guns arriving here within a month. A murmur ripples. Even among pirates, slave ships carried unease, not from conscience, but from disease and danger. Holds crammed with dying men, pestilence festering. Blackbeard reads the hesitation. "We're not slavers," he snaps. "I don't want their cargo. I want their vessel. The French will be weakened after the crossing. Half their crew dead, the rest sick and spent. That ship will be ours. As custom dictates, the plan is put to a vote. Despite unease, excitement wins easily. Too long they've lingered in false safety. Too long without fire. The men vote for action. 3 weeks later, you stand at the rail of the Revenge as the lookout shouts from the mast, "Sail ho! French colors to the southeast!" Raising your spyglass, you see her. The La Concorde sails slack despite strong winds. Her pace is slow, her crew clearly weakened, just as Blackbeard promised. "Battle stations," comes the order, though his tone is calm, almost casual. This will not be a battle. The French scramble clumsily to ready their guns, but their movements are slow, disorganized. When Blackbeard's black flag rises, their resistance shatters. One warning shot across the bow is enough. The French captain strikes his colors without firing a cannon. The boarding is anticlimactic. No desperate charge, no cutlasses flashing. You simply cross on planks laid between the ships. Below decks, the truth of their weakness hits like a blow. Hundreds of enslaved Africans chained shoulder to shoulder in suffocating dark. Disease festers, bodies already rotting where they lay. "God help us," someone mutters, choking behind. A kerchief. Even hardened men turn pale. Blackbeard wastes no time. "Release them," he commands. "Give them the smallest sloop. Let the French captain carry his cargo ashore." Mercy does not guide him, only pragmatism. Slaves mean sickness, unrest, and no profit. Better gone than aboard. As the transfer is made, you walk the decks of the La Concorde. She is everything promised. Solid timber, room for more guns, lines built for power and endurance. The carpenter runs a hand along her hull. 40 guns, maybe more. She'll take it. By nightfall, the French crew and their chained cargo are gone, shoved into the smallest vessel of the flotilla. A cruel kindness, but a chance at survival nonetheless. The La Concorde is claimed. Blackbeard wastes no breath. His belongings are hauled aboard. The black drapes, the armory, the heavy oak desk. Rum flows in celebration. A bottle smashes against her hull. "I name this ship Queen Anne's Revenge," Blackbeard declares. The name carries weight. The war that gave many their start as privateers, and the war whose end birthed the pirate brotherhood now standing upon her decks. The age of comfort is finished. The age of legend begins. There is another meaning in the name, one Blackbeard never states, but all understand. Queen Anne's Revenge is a declaration, not just of defiance against the crown, but of vengeance against King George, who abandoned the very sailors that had once fought under Anne's flag. It is a curse hurled at broken promises and at a monarchy that discarded its men like spent shot. The transformation of La Concorde into the Queen Anne's Revenge takes weeks. New gun ports are carved into her sides. Bulkheads are torn down to house a swelling crew. Even her figurehead is remade, the French maiden replaced with a grinning skeleton clutching an hourglass, time itself mocking all who see her. Recruitment follows. Word spreads of Blackbeard's prize, and men flock to his banner. Runaways, deserters, hardened rogues. By the time the work is finished, he commands 4 ships and more than 300 men, the largest pirate fleet since Morgan's. Buccaneers. Life aboard the Queen Anne's Revenge soon finds its rhythm. Where the Navy rules with flogging and rope's end, pirates rule by vote and mutual need. At dawn, the watch changes. Some men tumble bleary-eyed into hammocks. Others stumble up on deck to meet the rising sun. Breakfast is hardtack, rock solid. Biscuits that must be soaked in beer or water to be edible. Served with greasy salt pork. Fletcher curses at the weevils wriggling in his bread. "Extra protein," another man laughs. The mornings are for labor. Decks scrubbed raw with holy stones. Rigging inspected, sails mended, timbers caulked. A pirate ship cannot afford neglect. The sea punishes carelessness with death. Every man, no matter his station, works. At midday comes the main meal, bean broth and whatever meat hasn't rotted in the casks. On lucky days, a fresh catch hauled from the sea. On unlucky ones, salted slabs so rank even seasoned sailors gag. The afternoons are for training. Gun crews drill until they can load and fire in under 2 minutes. Hans, overseeing the exercise, snarls when a crew missteps. Too slow, and we're corpses. Evenings, when no sails are on the horizon, bring the closest thing to leisure. Pipes glow in the dusk, dice rattle across the deck, and fiddles scrape out half-tuned songs. Shanties rise with the rhythm of waves, some tuneful, most bawled off-key. Blackbeard seldom joins. He retreats instead to his cabin, bent over charts, his candlelight burning late into the night. Rumor whispers through the crew. He is planning something vast, greater than any strike before. The rumor proves true. A week later, the senior men are summoned. Spread across the captain's table is a chart of the Carolina coast. A single name circled in heavy ink. Charleston. "The richest port in His Majesty's colonies," Blackbeard announces. The words drop like shot into the silence. Charleston is no isolated plantation or fat merchantman. It is a fortified hub of commerce, guarded and armed. Fletcher stares at him. "You'd have us sack the city?" "Not sack," Blackbeard corrects, eyes glinting. "Strangle." He jabs the chart with a dagger point. "We seal the harbor. No ships in, no ships out. Their trade suffocates, their merchants beg, and then they pay." "What ransom?" a man asks. "Gold, silver, provisions?" Blackbeard's answer startles them. "Medicine, a chest of it. Our men are sick, pox, fever, worse. Charleston alone has the apothecaries to cure it." The room shifts with unease. To blockade an entire colonial city for medicine seems absurd, and yet, from the look in his eyes, none doubt he will do it. Finish his thought. But you already know the answer. Not long. The celebration rages late into the night, but for many of you, the rum only dulls the unease. The Charleston blockade has made Blackbeard a legend. Yet at the same time, it's revealed how far he's drifted from the ideals that once bound men to his cause. No longer a rebel fighting for freedom on the open sea, he now seems more like a figure chasing shadows of his own myth. Morning comes gray and heavy, the air thick with the smell of spent gunpowder and stale drink. Blackbeard is on deck early, already issuing orders to set sail. His eyes are bloodshot but sharp, burning with that same intensity that seems to grow each passing month. The fleet moves north, slipping back into the maze of inlets and shoals that make Carolina such a haven. For a time, life returns to routine. Cargoes are taken, papers forged under Governor Eden's seal, and coin flows through the men's pockets. Yet the whispers don't stop. Collis isn't the only one questioning whether this is still piracy or something darker. The blockade, The hostages, the threats. These are the tactics of tyrants, not free men of the sea, and Blackbeard feels it too. He grows more restless with each passing week, more unpredictable. One day, he feasts with the governor, charming Eden with lavish gifts. The next, he storms aboard a prize ship and executes its captain in cold blood before the crew can even open the cargo hold. The man who once carefully balanced fear with charisma now leans heavier on terror alone. You start to wonder if Fletcher's right, that Blackbeard is thinking of retirement. But if so, why does he still build his legend? So furiously, as if racing some invisible clock. Why does he seem determined to burn brighter, fiercer, even as the world closes in? The uneasy truth begins to settle over you. Perhaps Blackbeard already knows how this story ends. She doesn't just hand him a drink or exchange a few words. She kisses him like a partner, like someone who belongs at his side. The hard edges. You noticed before suddenly make sense. This isn't just a tavern girl. This is Anne Bonny. The room shifts with the realization. Men whisper her name, some with admiration, others with unease. A woman in the life is rare enough, but Anne doesn't carry herself like someone tagging along. She moves with the assurance of a pirate in her own right, not a shadow clinging to Rackham's fame. Calico Jack throws a coin on the counter, laughing. Too loudly, already a bit drunk. He has the easy charm of a man who's never led a great fleet or struck terror like Blackbeard, but who makes up for it with sheer audacity. His ship, the Revenge, is no Queen Anne's Revenge, but it sails fast and its crew is fiercely loyal. And now, it seems, it has Anne Bonny aboard. As you watch her leave with Rackham, a strange thought gnaws at you. Blackbeard was obsessed with legacy, with forcing the world to remember his name. But here, in this smoky tavern, you've glimpsed something different. Anne doesn't seem concerned with building a myth. She simply is, defying expectations just by existing in this world and bending it quietly, stubbornly, to her will. Outside, the sound of Rackham's men filters in, shouted orders, the creak of rigging, the rattle of anchor chain. Anne glances back once, catching your eye as she climbs aboard. It isn't a look of farewell. It's more like an invitation, a silent question. Do you dare? The answer hangs in your throat as their ship slips into the night, bound for waters where the rules of men and pirates are about to be rewritten, says quietly, his voice steady but sharp as cut steel. But don't waste the lesson. Anne's hand hesitates, knife still pressed against the man's throat. For a moment, you expect her to finish it, to carve her fury into his skin for good. But then, with a disgusted growl, she shoves him away. He stumbles, clutching his cheek, and bolts down the alley without looking back. Anne wipes the blade on her sleeve, muttering, "Cowards. All of them." Mark tilts his head, watching her with an expression you can't quite read. There's no fear, no judgment, only recognition, as if he understands something deeper in her anger. Men like that, Mark says at last, will never see you as their equal, no matter how many times you spill their blood. Anne sheaths her knife with a snap. Then I'll just keep teaching until they learn. Their eyes meet, and something silent passes between them. You're struck by it. Two people who live behind masks, both refusing to bow to the roles the world has forced upon them. Anne, the pirate who will not be confined to a tavern or a captain's bed. Mark, the soldier-turned-seafarer who hides more than anyone around him suspects. Anne notices you then, half hidden in the shadows. For a heartbeat, her stare pins you like the blade had pinned that man. Then, to your relief, she only smirks. See something you shouldn't again? You stammer an excuse, but Mark cuts in, calm and deliberate. Doesn't matter. He knows better than to talk. The unspoken warning is clear. You nod, swearing silently to keep your mouth shut as they leave together. You realize Matthews had been right. The most interesting part of the story is unfolding now, right before your eyes. Anne Bonny and Mark, Mary Read, if the whispers are true, are not just passengers in Calico Jack's tale. They are something else entirely, a force ready to carve their own legend into the seas. And for the first time since leaving Blackbeard, you feel that old pull again, the sense you're standing at the edge of history, watching the birth of something dangerous, defiant, and unforgettable. Says bluntly over a mug of rum at the spyglass. Never took more than a merchantman or two, nothing near the scale of Teach or Hornigold. You want glory? You won't find it with Calico Jack. You shrug. Glory doesn't fill a belly. Steady shares will do. Fletcher squints at you, weighing your resolve. Well, just remember, small-time captains can die just as hard as the great ones. Sometimes harder 'cause no one sings songs for 'em. Still, you're not deterred. By the third morning, you're on the docks before dawn. The William rocks gently. In the tide, her crew already stirring. Lean men with weather-beaten faces, hardened by salt and gunpowder. Among them, you spot Anne, dressed once again in seaman's garb, a pistol at her hip. She acknowledges you with the faintest of smirks, as though amused you'd actually shown up. Mark is there too, shoulders squared under his rough shirt, hat pulled low. No one looks twice at him. The disguise holds, at least for now. Rackham himself appears last, striding down the quay in his flamboyant coat, pistols gleaming in the early light. He barks a few orders, and suddenly the crew comes alive. Lines cast off, sails unfurled, muskets stowed. The William glides from her berth, like a predator slipping silently into the hunt. As Nassau recedes behind you, a strange sensation builds in your chest. You'd sworn off this life once, after the madness of Blackbeard and the chaos that followed. Yet here you are again, sea spray on your face, the creak of timbers underfoot, the horizon stretching wide with promise. Rackham stands at the quarterdeck, his voice carrying easily. A new voyage, lads, and lasses. Spanish gold rides these waters, fat and careless. We'll teach 'em to fear the Jolly Roger once more. A ragged cheer rises from the crew, Anne's voice loudest among them. Even Mark allows the faintest of smiles to tug at his lips. And as you take your place at the swivel gun, muscles remembering old rhythms, you realize Fletcher was right about one thing. This ship may not make legends. But with Anne Bonny and Mary Red aboard, and a captain bold or foolish enough to trust them, you're stepping into a story history won't soon forget. Fletcher shakes his head, insisting Rackham's prizes barely keep his crew alive. And women aboard? He mutters. It's unnatural. Bad luck. You recall Anne's cold blade at that sailor's throat, the precision in her eyes. I'll take my chances, you reply. When dawn of the third day arrives, you stand at the dock with your sea bag slung over one shoulder. The crew of the William is already bustling, ropes coiled, barrels stowed, sails made ready. Anne works among them, clad once more in men's clothing, receiving no favors and offering none. At the bow, Mark inspects the forward gun. Though you never dare speak her other name without leave, it's clear the others already respect her skills. Rackham greets you aboard with a flask of rum, a traditional welcome, and places you at the starboard swivel gun, your old specialty. By sunrise, the William glides from Nassau's harbor, setting course for the busy lanes between Cuba and Florida. Life here proves unlike your days with Blackbeard. The smaller crew creates a closeness impossible on larger decks. Everyone shares. The same hardships, the same victories. Rackham, though no genius, is steady, fair, and deeply familiar with the waters. He lacks Teach's spectacle, but listens to his men, values their votes, and divides spoils without trickery. His bond with Anne is plain. They share the captain's cabin openly. Mary's secret remains veiled, still Mark to most. Only Rackham, Anne, and perhaps a few others know her truth. At times you catch her watching you, weighing whether you've uncovered what she conceals. Over the weeks, the William takes modest prizes, small traders with sugar, rum, or tobacco. Enough to keep pockets lined, but not enough to invite the Navy's wrath. It's during the third such raid that you finally witness why Anne and Mary are more than tolerated. They are feared. The quarry, a Dutch merchant larger than the William but poorly armed, resists. Grappling hooks fly and pirates storm aboard. Anne leads with controlled ferocity, her cutlass striking clean and fast. Mary moves differently, deliberate, exacting, every stroke purposeful. The Dutch defenders, confident at first, falter when confronted with this unexpected pair. One huge sailor recovers his nerve and lunges at Anne's back. "Anne, down!" Mary cries. Anne drops to one knee instantly, and Mary's knife flashes past, burying itself in the man's chest. Their timing is flawless, revealing a bond deeper than comradeship. The Dutch surrender soon after, losses light on both sides. While prisoners are secured and cargo shifted, you find yourself at the rail beside Mary, both catching your breath. "Good throw," you say, nodding at her reclaimed blade. "And fine shot," she counters, recalling your swivel blast that cleared the deck at the fight's turning point. For a heartbeat, there's silent recognition. Respect exchanged, secrets left unspoken. Then Mary straightens, slipping back into her practiced guise. "Best see to it," she says in her lowered voice. "Still plenty before we turn back to Nassau." As she departs, you notice Anne's eyes on you, measuring, weighing, perhaps, wondering what passed between you. From across the deck, Anne's eyes find you. Her gaze isn't jealous, not exactly, but there's something fierce in it, a protectiveness that cuts deeper than words. Whatever lies between these two extraordinary women is not simple. It is something layered, complex, and unshakably strong. That evening, as the William sails homeward with her modest prize, Rackham breaks open a reserve cask of rum. The deck becomes alive with laughter and song, men boasting and retelling the battle in ever bolder strokes. Away from the noise, Anne joins you at the rail. Unlike Mary, she sheds all pretense when the fighting is over. Her hair spills loose, in the sea breeze, defiant and unashamed. "You're wondering about us," she says plainly. "About Mary and me. You startle at her use of Mary's true name, the first time you've heard it aloud aboard this ship. I'm wondering about a great many things, you admit, but it isn't my business." Anne's laugh is soft, melodic, startling for a pirate. "Smart man. Most can't resist prying, especially where two women in a man's world are concerned." She glances toward Mary, still Mark, to the crew, joining the songs with her usual measured restraint. We found each other when the world would have us be something we're not. Her voice lowers, the edge of steel hidden beneath tenderness. Mary's been forced to live as a man because the world gave her no choice. As for me, I'll never be some man's ornament or cast off, just because society decided that was all I could be. Her eyes turn back to you, sharp as cutlass steel. You sailed with Blackbeard. Tell me, did he ever once have to prove himself the way we do every day? The question lingers, heavy and undeniable. You know the truth before you can speak. Blackbeard, terrifying as he was, carried the privilege of his birth. No matter how carefully he cultivated his legend, he never fought against the chains these women fight every moment of their lives. Anne reads the silence in your face. I thought not. She pushes away from the rail. We'll reach Nassau tomorrow. Rackham means to sell the prize, take supplies, then head for Cuba, richer hunting there. I'll be ready, you assure her. She studies you a long moment. Mary trusts you. I'm not as certain, but I'll respect her judgment for now. With that, she returns to the revelry, sliding easily back into Rackham's side. You remain at the rail, caught in thought. Blackbeard had been the end of something, the last great blaze of a golden age fading fast. But in Anne Bonny and Mary, read, you see not an ending, but a defiance. Their story, you sense, has only begun, and whatever the outcome, it will be nothing short of extraordinary. The William sails beneath the Caribbean moon, unaware of how close its tale draws to its climax. October 1718. The air at Ocracoke Inlet hangs heavy, still like the breath before a storm. 6 months have passed since you first signed aboard Rackham's ship. 6 months of steady prizes and relative calm. But the sea is shifting, and with it, the world. Ship approaching, Mary calls from the rigging, still wearing her marked disguise. Though by now, among the inner crew, her secret is no secret at all. Sloop, moving fast. Rackham emerges, spyglass in hand. Colors? None yet, she answers. But her lines, familiar. The vessel grows larger, and recognition flashes across Rackham's face. The Adventure, he mutters. Israel Hand's ship. The name chills you. Hands, once Blackbeard's quartermaster, now a captain in his own right. You'd sailed beside him under Teach, not friends, but bound by that shared past. Think he's hunting us? Anne asks, hand casually resting on her pistol. If he were, he wouldn't approach so openly, Rackham reasons. No, he's bearing news. The Adventure draws close, and Israel Hands himself hails across the gap. Permission to come aboard. Captain Rackham! Granted, Rackham answers after a moment. But come alone. Moments later, Hands steps onto the Williams deck. His once youthful face is carved by sun and sorrow now. His eyes flicker to you. Recognition, a curt nod, before turning grimly to Rackham. Teach is dead, he says without ceremony. The words strike like cannon fire. For all his madness, Blackbeard had seemed untouchable, as eternal as the sea itself. How? Rackham demands, speaking for every stunned man on deck. Hand's expression hardens. Lieutenant Maynard, Royal Navy. Governor Spotswood of Virginia sent him with 2 sloops to hunt Teach down. The crew gathers close as Hands recounts. Teach cornered at Ocracoke Inlet. Maynard's false colors. The clash that followed. Blackbeard, fierce to the last, boarding Maynard's deck in triumph, only to find a hidden swarm of redcoats rising from below. He fought like the devil himself, Hans says, voice hollow. Snapped Maynard's blade with his bare hand, took 20 cutlass wounds. 5 pistol shots before he finally fell. Silence grips the William. Say what you will about Edward Teach, pirate, villain, madman. He died as he lived, ferocious and unyielding. Defiantly, with a final breath, he secured his legend forever. After his fall, Hans continued. Maynard severed his head and fastened it to the bowsprit as a grim warning to all who still dared piracy. Anne made a sound of pure disgust. Savage. That's not all, Hans said, his gaze sweeping the gathered men. Spotswood has declared open season. Every pirate, every ship. 500 pounds for captains, 100 for officers. The hunt is sanctioned. Rackham waved it off with forced calm. Pirates have always had a price on their heads. Not like this, Hans pressed. They're united now. Royal, Navy, colonial governors, even private hunters, all commissioned to bring us down. Nassau, Tortuga, Port Royal, none are safe anymore. You studied Rackham, reading the flicker of doubt in his eyes. The William had survived by staying low, bribing when needed, taking prizes without boasting. But if Hans spoke truth, caution alone would no longer be enough. And you? Rackham asked. Why are you still here? A shadow darkened Hans' face. I'm done. Taking the king's pardon while it's still offered. Thought you might consider it too. Rackham's jaw hardened. I tried that once. The honest life didn't suit me. Your choice, Hans shrugged. But the tide's shifting. Blackbeard was the greatest of us. And they displayed his head like a trophy. When he departed, unease lingered on the deck like fog. Men whispered in tight knots, voices low and anxious. Even Anne's usual fire dimmed, her sharp confidence muted. You found Mary at the stern, her eyes fixed on the vanishing silhouette of the adventure. You knew him, she said quietly. I sailed with him for a time, you admitted. What was he really? Beyond the legend? You thought carefully, separating man from myth. Always calculating, always playing a part. But beneath it all, he believed in piracy as freedom, shared risk, shared reward. A life apart from kings and lords. Mary nodded, eyes dark. And they killed him for it. They killed him because he rose too high, you countered. Made himself impossible to ignore. Her gaze locked on yours, hard with resolve. So what do we do? Shrink back? Hide in shadows? Before you could answer, Rackham's voice cut through the night. The crew gathered quickly, a circle of tense faces lit by lantern light. You've heard the news, he began, pacing the deck, coat whipping in the breeze. Blackbeard is gone. The noose tightens. Each man must choose his path. He raised one hand. First option, the king's pardon. We'll put you ashore, fair share in hand. A second finger. Second, stand with me. South to the Spanish. Maine, where the seas are richer and the crown's reach weaker. The third. Or part ways now. I'll buy out your share, and you find another birth or another life. Anne stood beside him, arms folded, her eyes sharp as she measured the crew's reactions. Mary lingered apart, unreadable. 1 hour, Rackham declared. No going back after tonight. The ship buzzed with tension. Some argued fiercely for pardon, pointing to Blackbeard's brutal fate as proof of certain doom. Others clung to Rackham's path, chasing riches over fear. You remained undecided, hands busy tightening the lashings of your swivel gun, work that had grown almost meditative. Anne's voice startled you. Already chosen? Still weighing it, you replied. She leaned on the rail, watching your hands. Jack needs loyal souls. Men he can trust. And women? You asked without thinking, her mouth curved. Especially women. We're the only sensible ones most days. The smile tugged at your lips. So, how much danger are we truly in? Her expression darkened. More than Jack admits. Word from Nassau. Rogers wants us, specifically me and Mary. Why you two? You asked, baffled. You're hardly the most infamous. Because we're women, Anne said, her tone edged with scorn. Pirates, they can endure. But female pirates, to them, we're an abomination, a threat to their order. Her words settled like iron. In a world bound by rigid roles, Anne Bonny and Mary Red were more than pirates. They were proof that those very roles could be broken. Defiantly, with his final breath, he cemented his legend. After he fell, Hans continued, Maynard severed his head and hung it from the bowsprit as a warning to others. Anne gave a sound of disgust. Barbaric. Hans shook his head. That's not all. Spotswood has declared open season on pirates. The governor's offering enormous bounties, $500 for captains, $100 for officers. Rackham dismissed, it with forced ease. Nothing new. Pirates have always been hunted. Not like this, Hans pressed. They're united now, Royal Navy, governors, privateer hunters, all working together. The havens are gone. Nassau, Tortuga, Port Royal, nowhere safe. You glanced at Rackham, catching the calculations in his eyes. The William had survived by keeping low, bribing when needed. But if Hans was right, half measures might not suffice. And you? Rackham asked. A shadow crossed Hans's face. I'm done, taking the king's pardon while it's offered. Thought you'd consider the same. Rackham bristled. I tried pardon once. The honest life didn't suit me. Hans shrugged. Your choice. But the Golden Age is ending. Blackbeard was the greatest, and they took his head like it was nothing. When Hans left, unease settled over the ship. Men whispered in clusters. Even Anne seemed muted, her usual fire dimmed. At the stern, Mary stared at the horizon. You knew him? She asked. Sailed with him a time, you admitted, before Charleston. What was he like? You weighed it. Calculating, always crafting an image, but he believed freedom, equality, shares in risk and reward. Mary nodded. And they killed him for it. They killed him because he made himself too great a target, you corrected. Her eyes hardened. So, we hide? Make ourselves small? Before you could answer, Rackham called the crew. You've heard the news, he began. Blackbeard is dead. The noose tightens. You each choose your path. He paced, coat flaring. I won't dictate fates. 3 options. 1. Take the king's pardon. We'll put you ashore with your share. 2. Stay with me. No more half measures. We sail south to the Spanish Main where the hunt is weaker. 3. We part ways. I buy you out and you seek another life. Anne stood at his side, arms crossed. Mary apart, unreadable. We vote in 1 hour, Rackham declared. No going back. The ship buzzed with debate. Some urged pardon, fearing Blackbeard's fate would be theirs. Others craved Spanish waters, still rich with plunder. You weighed silently as you checked your swivel gun, the motion steadying your thoughts. Anne's voice startled you. Already decided? Still thinking, you admitted. She leaned against the rail. Jack needs loyal hands. You smirked. And women? Amusement flickered in her eyes. Especially women. We're the ones with sense most days. You smiled. How much danger? Her face darkened. More than Jack says. Rogers is hunting us. Me and Mary in particular. You frowned. Why you? Because we're women. Men they can stomach. But women pirates? An abomination. A threat to the order. Her words cut sharp, the truth undeniable. In a world bound by rigid roles, Anne Bonny and Mary Read represented something far more dangerous than theft. The Marines swarm aboard at last, fewer than half the pirates still standing to resist. What follows becomes etched in pirate lore as one of its most shameful moments. Anne and Mary hold their ground on the quarterdeck, fighting shoulder to shoulder, cutting down attackers with steel and fury, while Rackham and nearly all the others give up with barely a token effort. Whether broken by the hopeless odds or resigned to fate, the contrast between the women's ferocity and the men's surrender is blindingly clear. "Cowards!" Anne screams at her lover as chains are thrown around him. "Had you fought like a man, you'd not hang like a dog." Her words ring across the blood-stained planks, ensuring that Calico Jack Rackham's memory, however else history recalls it, will always bear the stain of his surrender. Even Anne and Mary at last are subdued by sheer numbers. Disarmed, bound, yet unbowed, they stand with unyielding posture as the British captain approaches. It is then that Mary's secret becomes plain to all. Her cap knocked away, her bindings pressing against what loose garments had hidden. The captain recoils. "What devilry is this?" he demands, faced with not one but two women among his captives. "No devilry," Mary replies, calm even in defeat. "Only women daring what men lack the courage for." The officers are aghast, scandalized, and strangely fascinated, yet their judgment turns harsher still upon this revelation. The survivors, yourself included, are shackled in the hold of the largest Navy sloop, bound for Jamaica where royal justice awaits. The voyage is wretched, dark, suffocating, with scarce food or water. The only small mercy, Anne and Mary are separated from the men, spared some of the abuses that might otherwise have followed. When Jamaica's coast rises at last, the sight is bitter. Spanish Town, rigid and orderly, offers none of Nassau's wild liberty nor Eleuthera's raw beauty. Authority here is unquestioned. The trial proves a mere formality. Rackham, Anne Bonny, Mary Read, and the crew of the William are condemned as pirates, guilty of a crime punishable by death. Hanging is decreed within the month, yet in the shadow of the verdict, an extraordinary twist shakes the court. Summoned again for final sentencing, Anne speaks with unexpected gravity. "My lord, I plead my belly." Mary, standing beside her, echoes, "As do I." The archaic phrase invokes one of the few protections afforded by law. No pregnant woman may hang until after her child is born. Annoyed but bound to procedure, the judge orders an examination by matrons. Their report confirms both claims. Execution is delayed for Anne and Mary, though Rackham and the men remain marked for death. On the eve of his hanging, Rackham is granted a final meeting with Anne, whether from pity or a grim sense of spectacle. What passed between them remains uncertain. Some say she spat bitter words, others whisper of softer farewells. But her last words remembered are these: I'm sorry to see you here, Jack. But had you fought like a man, you need not hang like a dog. At dawn, Calico Jack and his crew are marched to Gallows Point, a spit of land long used for pirate executions. A crowd gathers, eager for the grim entertainment. From your own cell you hear the roar of voices with each drop of the trap. Rackham, saved for last, faces death with an odd dignity. Granted a final cup of rum, he is said to have declared, "I have had a short life and a merry one." The women's fates diverge. Mary, already weakened, succumbs to fever in prison the following spring. Whether her pregnancy was true or a clever ruse, none can say, for no child appears in the records. Anne's ending is more elusive. Documents confirm she lived on past Mary's death, yet no execution is ever listed. Most believe her father, wealthy and influential, secured her release, spiriting her away to the colonies under another name, as, for you, fortune twists. Branded less willing, more pressed into piracy than others, your sentence is commuted. Instead of the noose, transportation to Georgia awaits, your years to be spent in hard labor. Not freedom, but life. The last glimpse you have of Anne Bonny is through iron bars as prison carts depart. She stands at her own window, one hand curved over her belly, the other raised faintly, as farewell or merely to steady herself. You cannot tell. Her face is unreadable, not defeated, not triumphant, only resolute, as she had been from the first moment in that Nassau tavern. So closes the chapter. Not only of your own life, but of piracy's golden age. Blackbeard dead and severed, Rackham hanged, Mary claimed by fever, Anne swallowed by mystery. In the years that follow, you hear whispers of others' ends. Roberts slain in battle, Stayda, Bonnet hanged in Charleston, Vane executed in Jamaica. One by one, the great names vanish, until the unruly freedom of the sea is replaced by the iron commerce of empire. The Republic of Pirates is no more. Conquered not just in arms, but in memory, its image shifting into story and legend. And legends, as Edward Teach once proved, endure beyond the grave. Charleston, South Carolina, 1732. 14 years since you last felt a ship roll beneath you. 10 years since your indenture ended, granting you peace as a modest shipwright. Your hands, once hardened by cannon and line, are now calloused by honest craft. "Papa, tell me the pirate story again," your son pleads, tugging at your sleeve as you sit. You sit on the porch of your modest home overlooking the harbor, the evening breeze carrying the scent of salt and tar. At 8 years old, your son Thomas is endlessly fascinated with tales of pirates, especially those surrounding the infamous Blackbeard. "Tell me the pirate story again, Papa," he pleads, tugging at your sleeve. From the doorway, your wife, Sarah, appears, drying her hands on her apron. "Not those dreadful stories again," she sighs, though her tone holds more affection than reproach. "You'll give him nightmares." "No, I won't," Thomas protests quickly. "I want to hear about the burning beard and the blockade and the 20 wounds." You can't help but smile. Already, barely a decade since the events themselves, the truth is twisting into legend. Each retelling multiplies the numbers. More. Wounds, larger crews, treasure made ever more vast and mysterious. "Go on, then," Sarah relents, settling beside you on the bench. "But tell the true version this time, not the tavern tales." The true version, you agree, though even you sometimes struggle to untangle memory from hearsay. The line between fact and legend blurs when reality itself was so extraordinary. Thomas, sits cross-legged at your feet, eyes shining with anticipation. Did you really see Blackbeard's ghost ship? No, lad, you chuckle. That's sailor's talk. But I did serve aboard his flagship, the Queen Anne's Revenge. And was his beard really on fire? Not quite. He wove slow-burning matches into it, like fuses, you explain. The smoke made him look like a devil rising straight from hell. Thomas shivers with delight at the image. And did he really bury treasure on the islands? He presses. You laugh outright at that. That's the strangest tale of all. In all my years among pirates, I never once saw anyone bury treasure. Why would they? The whole point was to spend it. Sarah leans forward, curiosity softening her, skepticism. Then what did they do with their plunder? Spent it in port, and quickly, you say with a knowing smile. Drink, clothes, fleeting pleasures. Few pirates saved a coin, most died poor, no matter how much they stole, Thomas. Frowns, disappointed by the mundane truth. Like so many children, and more grown folk, too, he prefers the embellished stories now spreading through the colonies. Cursed gold, maps marked with X's, and ghostly ships sailing eternal seas. But what about Anne Bonny? Sarah asks softly. That part of the tale has always captivated her. The woman who defied every rule of her time. Ah, Anne. Your gaze drifts out over the harbor, remembering the fiery barmaid turned pirate. No one knows for sure. She disappeared from the Spanish town prison around 1721. No record of release, no record of execution. Some say she came back here, Sarah adds, using the old name, Charlestown. That her father, William Cormac, paid for her freedom. You nod slowly. I've heard that tale. Others say she went to Virginia or back to Ireland. Some even claim she found another ship and carried on pirating under a new name. I like to think she's still out there somewhere, Sarah says quietly, surprising you with the wistfulness in her voice. Your proper colonial wife, secretly imagining the freedom of a pirate woman's life, and the treasure? Thomas interrupts eagerly, returning to his favorite subject. Blackbeard's treasure? If he ever had a great hoard, he kept it secret, even from his crew, you answer honestly. Most likely whatever he hadn't spent was lost when the Queen Anne's Revenge ran aground. But truth rarely satisfies. In taverns up and down the coast, you've heard the stories grow of vast riches hidden along the Carolinas or buried on some nameless isle waiting for discovery. People need such myths, you've come to realize. They need to believe that freedom and fortune still lie just one lucky find away. The dull truth that most pirates lived short, violent lives, rich only for fleeting moments, serves no one's dreams. Mr. Harrison, to see you. Sir? Your housemaid interrupts, gesturing toward the garden gate. Send him in, Martha, you say, rising with curiosity. Benjamin Harrison, the printer and bookseller, approaches with a leather portfolio tucked under one arm, his face alight with excitement. Forgive the intrusion, he begins politely. But I've received something from London I thought might interest you, given your past associations. He withdraws a freshly printed book, its binding still stiff. The title page reads, A General History of the Robberies and Murders of the Most Notorious Pirates by Captain Charles Johnson. Just published, Harrison explains with reverence. The talk of London. They say it's the first complete account of the late pirate troubles. Your heart quickens despite yourself. You flip through the pages, Teach, Bonnet, Rackham, Vane, even chapters on Anne Bonny and Mary Read. I thought you, with your knowledge of ships and experiences of that time, might judge its accuracy. Harrison says carefully. Your past, after all, is no secret. The respectable calm of Charleston had long since replaced the wild roar of Nassau in your ears. But as you stood at the harbor that afternoon, the sight of the naval vessel anchored offshore stirred something restless within you. The trim lines of her hull, the disciplined crew bustling about their duties. It was a vision of the authority that had crushed the pirate republic. And yet, part of you still felt the ache of those days when you and your comrades defied such ships with little more than courage, desperation, and a willingness to gamble everything. Your thoughts drifted back to Fletcher's midnight revelation, Anne Bonny, alive, hidden away in Havana, with a daughter. The idea gnawed at you. You tried to dismiss it as one of Fletcher's schemes, but the details rang too true, too raw, to be easily discarded. Anne's eyes, her quick knife, her refusal to be recognized, those fit the woman you remembered. And the mention of a child, with Rackham's eyes. It struck something deeper, a reminder that the legacies of your past were not so easily buried as treasure. Lost in thought again? Sarah's voice brought you back. She had come down to meet you, her presence grounding. As always, her hand slipped into yours, steady and sure. The shipwright's mind is never far from the sea, is it? You smiled faintly. Some memories are like tides. They return whether you welcome them or not. She studied you quietly, as though she suspected more, but chose not to press. Respectability, after all, required discretion. Still, the unspoken lingered between you, the truth of what you once were, what you once did, and the ghosts that would forever haunt the edge of your days. That evening, long after Charleston's streets had settled into slumber, you sat once more with Johnson's History of the Pirates, lantern light flickering across its fresh pages. The words now felt heavier. The book would shape how the world remembered those years. But Fletcher's words had reminded you of a different truth. Not all stories had ended, as the pages claimed. Some were still unfolding in the shadows of distant ports. You closed the book, running a hand across its stiff cover. Myth and memory, fact and legend, life and death, all braided together into something neither fully true nor fully false. Perhaps that was always the way of history. Above you, the stars stretched wide and endless, the same sky that once guided you across seas filled with danger and promise. You felt the pull again, faint but undeniable, the old hunger for the horizon. And with it, the lingering question: would the world ever truly know the fate of Anne Bonny, or would she, like so much of your past, remain forever caught between history and legend? The HMS Skara loomed in the harbor, her guns silent but heavy with meaning. Once, a ship like that would have sent pirate crews scattering like gulls before a storm. Now she stood as the unshakable emblem of empire, order triumphant, chaos banished from these waters. Near the docks, a knot of townsfolk crowded around a ragged old sailor. For a penny, he spun tales of pirates long gone. You lingered at the edge as he spoke of Blackbeard, matches smoldering in his beard, a demon cloaked in smoke and fury. When he reached the part at Ocracoke, he declared it had taken 20 men to bring the outlaw down, and not before Blackbeard had killed 10 with his bare hands. The crowd gasped in delight at the exaggeration. You only smiled faintly. The truth was brutal enough without embroidery, but truth makes for poor theater. Quietly, you dropped a coin in his cup and moved on. Let them have their myths. That evening, with Johnson's History of the Pirates finally closed upon your lap, you sat long in the quiet. His conclusions echoed your own. Piracy was never destiny, only circumstance. The war had ended, privateers were cut loose, Nassau stood lawless and well-placed. Spanish treasure flowed thick as blood, and harsh shipboard lives made the gamble seem worth it. But the moment passed. Navies grew stronger. Merchants sailed with better guns. Men like Rogers turned havens into colonies, and the scales tipped against the black flag. And yet, despite its end, piracy would not die. In taverns and marketplaces, in penny tales and whispered legends, it was already being remade, not as it truly was, but as people wished it had been. Romantic, defiant, free. That night, when your son murmured sleepily, "Papa, when I grow up, I want to be a pirate like..." Blackbeard, you only smiled in the dark. There are no more pirates, lad. Not real ones, anyway. His small voice drifting into dreams. Then I'll be the first. Let him dream. The truth will come soon enough. Later, lying awake, your mind wandered to the others. Hands pardoned and vanished. Vain, raging to the end. State of Bonnet. Charleston's gallows taking him despite all his books and breeding. And Anne, perhaps alive still in Cuba, if Fletcher's whispers held truth. Did she stand on a shoreline sometimes, her daughter, at her side, tasting salt on the wind, feeling her hands ache for rope and steel? Or had she buried it all, as you had, beneath duty and years? The Golden Age was over. Its candle burned hot and brief, snuffed out by empire's steady hand. What remained now were stories, and stories grow taller in the telling. Blackbeard's beard will blaze brighter, his wounds multiply, his treasure gleam richer with every retelling. Anne and Mary will stride eternal across decks, fierce queens of the sea who never bent to the noose. And perhaps that is how it should be. For the pirate's life itself was fleeting, brutal, and doomed. But the idea of it, the raw promise of freedom, of men and women shaping their fate outside the chains of king and crown, that idea endures. Myths, not facts, carry it forward. A glimpse, however brief, of democracy before the world was ready. For it, forged not in halls of state, but on the deck of stolen ships. As you drift into sleep beside your wife, Charleston settled quiet around you, you find no regret in this truth. Let the legends grow. Let the black flag fly eternal in the human spirit, whispering of freedom in every age. Nassau is gone. The ships are rotted, the graves filled. But somewhere, in the stories told by firelight and sea breeze, the dream sails still. Not just pirates, pioneers. Flawed, violent, doomed, but free. And perhaps that above all is their true treasure.